307 within Division 310.
I was chief of a platoon in 1970 under the supervision of Division 310.
But were you chief of a unit with the numbers 307?
Allow me to clarify. There was a unit 17 and not the number that you mentioned.
I'm asking you because in your DC Chem statement you said to the interviewer that you were made Chief of Battalion 307. Mr. President, that is English page 13, ERN 00876489, Khmer 00020572 and 73, and French 00892641. You said, I had already been made a Chief of Battalion. And the question is, what number was your battalion? It was Battalion 307. So, maybe that refreshes your memory. Were you Chief of Battalion 307 at one point in time?
I used to be a chief of that battalion. However, that appointment was provisional, and I was never officially appointed to be the battalion chief at that time. It was temporary, as I just mentioned.
And how many combatants were you supposed to command? How many combatants were at that time in Battalion 307?
There were 3 companies, each comprised of 130 soldiers.
So it was the intention at one point in time that you were going to command about 390 combatants. Is that correct?
Yes, that is about right.
And why did it never come to pass? Why did you never become Chief of Battalion 307?
Because of my affiliation to the terrorist network, or also because of my alert affiliation to the previous political tendency. That's why I was not officially promoted to be chief of that battalion, and I was there only on a provisional basis.
I understand. When you were told that you might become chief of Battalion 307, but you didn't because of, as you call it, your tendencies, were you at that time member of Regiment 12, Battalion 123, Company 5?
No, I was removed and demoted to a field combatant.
But is it correct that when you've made that small biography, which the prosecution referred to this morning, done by you, Comrade Kim, on the 24th of August 1976, that you were in fact a member of Regiment 12, Battalion 123 and Company 5?
Yes, the statement you read out is correct.
Now I would like to ask you some names, names from people within Division 310. You spoke already extensively about Comrade Un, the Secretary of Division 310. What can you say about Comrade Vun, the Deputy Chief of Division 310? Do you know Comrade Vun?
That statement is incorrect. It's not Run, in fact it's Prun. Hương, who was Deputy Commander of Division 310.
My national colleague will pronounce the name for me.
Council, in the document, it pronounced Vương.
Is that correct or is that not correct?
In fact, I apologize, I made a mistake. The Deputy Commander of that division is by that name, that is Vương, and that is correct.
For the record, Mr. President, I was referring to document E3/1585. It's a list of participants of the first General Staff Training, 20 October 1976. English ERN 00897650, Khmer 000095533, and French 0061167. Mr. Witness, on that same list of participants, I see two names being Comrade Peng and Comrade Nan, respectively Secretary of Regiment 12 and Deputy Secretary of Regiment 12. Do these two names mean anything to you? Comrade Peng and Comrade Nam?
Yes, you are right. I knew them, and I saw them. In particular, I knew Payne rather well, who was the regiment commander.
Was he your direct commander?
Yes, he was my direct superior, as he was the commander of that regiment.
And if you were to describe the chain of command, how many ranks in the chain of command was he above you?
No.
He was my superior. So below him there was a battalion, then a company, and then my level, the platoon. So it was a 4-layer chain of commands from him, that is from the regimental level to my platoon level.
And the only thing I'm not quite sure if I understand correctly is what is the relation between Regiment 12 and Battalion 123? Is 123 part of Regiment 12? Is that my understanding? Or should that be my understanding?
Yes, you are right on that.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Now I would like to mention 4 more names from Battalion 123. Mr. President, I'm referring to document E3/2592, English ERN 00887712 and 11, French 0092305 and 58, and Khmer 002300380 and 81. This is a list of prisoners from Division 310, and there are 4 names of Battalion 123 people on it, and I only want to ask the witness if he knows these names. Mr. Witness, do you know someone called If Chia, alias Chun? That's number 41 on the list. Kwet Kin, alias Sun. Yuas Vun, alias Tun. And Chor Tong, alias Rom. Do any of these 4 names ring a bell to you?
No, the 4 names do not ring a bell to me. I don't know any of them.
I know that you were in Company 5 of Battalion 123. Did you know any members of Company 1 in Battalion 123?
I did not have that knowledge or know those names.
Just to be sure, Mr. Witness, my pronunciation might not have been that well. I will ask my national colleague to pronounce these 4 names that I just mentioned, just to be sure that I did it well.
The first name is Yêu Chia, who was a secretary. And the second name is Kvat Khan alias Soon. The third name is Jus Vun alias Thun. And the fourth name is Chu Tong alias Run. And they were from Battalion 123. I only know 1 out of the 4 name on the 4 names, that is Trun. For the other 3, I do not know them.
What do you remember of Thun?
I do not know about the nature of his work. I only knew about his name only. That's the limit of my knowledge regarding this individual.
So you have never heard of him being arrested on around 24 April 1977?
I only knew that Trun was arrested. At that time, he held a position in a battalion, and that's all I know.
Do you know whether any members of Company 5, to which you belonged, were arrested in the period February 1977 until June 1977?
I knew about the arrest of Jim, who was in charge of Battalion 5, says the witness.
Do you know is the name that you just mentioned, is that his revolutionary name or alias, or is that his real name?
He didn't have any alias, and that was his birth name, Jim. His father's name was Chan Chim, from my recollection.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. There was another cadre from Division 310 who has given testimony before this trial chamber sometime last week, and he spoke about somebody called Tak Kim. Do you recall within Division 310 somebody with the name Tak Kim?
Yes, I heard of that name, Takim. And I think you're right about the name, but allow me to say that I never had any relationship with him.
But who was Takim? What was his military? What was his rank within Division 310?
He was a replacement of the Un. That means he was in charge of Division 310 after the Un was arrested.
Was he from the southwest zone, or was he already within Division 310?
Takim came from the southwest zone.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Now, you also given testimony to DC Chem about a commander of which I didn't realize, or I didn't know, that he was member of Division 310, and that's Prime Minister Hun Sen. You testified, or you gave testimony to DC Chem, page 12, English ERN 00876-488, Khmer 0002-0571, and French 00892641, that Prime Minister Hun Sen had a military position within Division 310. Is that correct?
Yes, he had a position in Division 310. However, I was not sure whether he was ever a commander or a deputy commander of that division.
And how do you know, or how did you know, that the person that you remembered being a member of Division 310 is in fact the same person as Prime Minister Hun Sen? How do you know, or how did you know?
I knew it through my colleagues that he held a position in Division 310.
Let me read a little bit from your statement to DC Chem. Maybe that will refresh your memory. That's the same page that I just mentioned. Yes, you answer, yes, I remained in Division 310. I was then always with our Samdech Prime Minister. The DC Chem interviewer asked, Samdech Hun Sen? And you answer, yes, I was promoted to the battalion level. He was in the division. Un was the chief, and he was the deputy chief of Division 310. Question. How do you know that this man is now our Samdech Prime Minister? And then you answer, I know him clearly. He has an eye impairment due to a wound he suffered in a battlefield where he fought with me in Pratil Dam Slang. Question. Where is this place located? You answer, it is in the south. No, it is in the north of Phnom Penh. How did he get such an eye impairment? And then you answer, yes, he got this while he was with me. He was hit by a small fragment of a M79 grenade. Mr. Witness, do you recall telling this to the interviewer of DC Cam?
Yes, that is correct.
But you said in your statement to DC Cam that he was the deputy chief of Division 310, and I thought that we just had established that it was Comrade Woon who was the deputy chief of the division. So who was the deputy chief of the division 310?
It was Samdech. At that time, he was with Division 310. And what you said is correct.
When I read your statement, I was a bit confused. So was the interviewer of DC Cam, because the DC Cam interviewer asked, wasn't Samdech Hun Sen a member of the East Zone forces? And then you said, no, he was not. He was from the North Zone. So are you sure that he was in the North Zone forces?
At that time, I did not know his actual background, whether he came from the North or the East Zone, but I saw him being in the Division 310 in the North Zone. That's all I know about him.
But we do know that at one point he was member of the East Zone division. Do you know when he moved from Division 310 to East Zone, the East Zone military?
No, I did not know about that at that stage. When I saw him, he was attached to Division 310, and I did not know from which zone or division he came before he was there.
Now let us move now to Division Chief Un. This morning you testified that you did not know the reason why Un was arrested. And you also said that we just followed his instructions. We didn't have any knowledge about him. However, I would like to read something from your own statement to you. Maybe that will refresh your memory somehow. That's again the DC Cam statement, Mr. President, English ERN 00876520, Khmer 0002058 and French 00892664. English it's page 44. This is what you said about your chief Un. He tried to build up internal forces called Khmer White to struggle against the Khmer Rouge regime. So he tried to build up hidden forces in a division. This is what I recall. He sent me to penetrate myself in Kampong Cham. He gave me a platoon to lead and 55 trucks to transport weapons to hide in Kampong Cham. When all the leaders, such as Un and Tut, were arrested, I was found to have had an association with them. And that was why I was accused of having a bad political tendency. A little further on that page, the French is now 6-5 in the end, in the ERN. Question, you were saying that Un hit you in Kampong Cham. Did you actually transport weapons there? You answer, yes, I did transport weapons to Kampong Cham. Question, a war was going to happen, right? What were you then ordered to do with these hidden weapons? And then you answer, we were ordered to stand by for further orders. When the time came, we were to transport these weapons onto Q's place in Pochentong to attack and seize Pochentong Airport, to attack and seize an artillery and armored vehicle warehouse. Another battalion was ordered to get ready to attack the radio station. However, the plot was revealed and all involved leaders and their associates were arrested. The war could have started at any time since 1976 should these arrangements be successful. Now, Mr. Witness, this is from your statement. I read it back to you. Is this what you told the DC Cam investigator?
Yes, that's the statement I made to the DCCAM interviewer. And the extract that you read out is actually correct. It is according to my response to the DCCAM interviewer at the time.
Let me start with your role in this rebellion. You said that Un gave you a platoon to lead and 55 trucks to transport weapons to hide in Kampong Cham. Did you, in fact, follow his order or his instruction? Did you hide weapons in Kampong Cham?
Answer. I did what was said in the documents.
And where did you hide these weapons in Kampong Cham?
Answer. I transported weapons to Kampong Cham and I handed over to Tol, the committee of the sector. I did not know where he captured those weapons.
And do you remember when this was? How many weeks or months before Un was arrested?
Answer. I transported weapons to Kampong Cham, and 1 month later the information was leaked out and Eun was arrested.
Can you describe for me a 55 truck? What is a 55 truck?
Answer. In the DC Camps document, there was typo. The CMC trucks has 10 wheels.
So it were 6 CMC trucks carrying the weapons, is that correct?
Answer. Yes, that is correct.
And what kind of weapons did you transport to Kampong Cham?
Witness. There were different types of weapons, such as M79, AK rifles, and Pekang.
And all 6 trucks were fully loaded with weapons to be used for the rebellion?
Answer. The weapons were full in the vehicles.
Did you also end up leading a platoon as instructed by Un?
Answer. Yes, I completed the transportation of the weapons, and after which Un was arrested, as I indicated.
And how many members were in that platoon to lead those trucks with weapons to hide in Kampong Cham?
Answer. There were 36 of us.
And were you all from Battalion 123 or from Regiment 12?
Witness. I was in Regiment 12.
But these members from the platoon assisting you in hiding these weapons, were they all from Regiment 12 or from Battalion 123?
Answer. They were in Battalion 23.
Do you know when Pochentong Airport was supposed to be attacked and seized?
Answer. There was a plan at that time, and the attack did not happen because the secret broke out at that time, and as I stated, so there was only planned, but the actual attack did not occur.
I understand that, but do you recall when the attack was supposed to take place? When was Pochentong Airport supposed to be attacked and seized? Was that sometime in the spring of 1977?
Answer. The plan to capture Pochentong Airport was in mid 1977, and there was a plan to seize and capture Pochentong Airport in mid 1977.
And what about this artillery and armored vehicle warehouse? Was that supposed to be seized and captured at the same time as Pochentong Airport?
Answer. Yes. The plan was that the weapons needed to be transported to the East Zone for the sector soldiers to capture the airports, and the sector would be responsible for the attack in their own sectors.
So was it a combined attack of Division 310 with East Zone divisions?
Answer. Yes, it was the combined plan, and the East Zone would be engaged in the attack in its own zone, and the North Zone would be responsible for its own.
Do you know when the first preparations took place for this plan? Was it already discussed and in progress for a few months or a year? Do you know how long UN was preparing an armed rebellion within DK?
Answer. I do not have the full knowledge when the plans were prepared by him. He let me supervise me, and he told us that we live in the democratic Cambodia, and we could not live in this regime. We had to liberate ourselves from the regime, so we needed to attack and defeat this regime.
Do you know when you yourself received the instruction or the order from UN to transport these weapons to Kampong Cham?
Answer. He told me to transport weapons to Kampong Cham and kept in Sector 31 perhaps. And at that time, I handed over the weapons to Tol, the chief of the sector.
I understand, but my question was, do you know how much time there was between you, together with your platoon, sending those weapons on those 5 trucks to Kampong Cham and actually getting the order from UN? How much time between the order from UN and you transporting these weapons?
Answer: I do not recall it exactly. I could not recall it. And as I stated, after the information was leaked, Un was arrested and we parted each other from that time onwards.
In your DC camp statement, you refer to Un being arrested. But in that same sentence where you say that Un was arrested, you also say that Tuk was arrested. Do you mean with Tuk Koitun?
Answer: he was called Toch before, and later on I heard people call him Tatun, and the two names refer to the same individual.
And is the same individual that you refer to as that Koitun, the former leader of the North Zone?
Answer: yes, he represented the North Zone, I mean Koitun.
Do you know what the role of Koitun was in the rebellion? I think I understand what Un's role was, but do you know what Koitun was doing in preparing this rebellion?
Answer: the reason that I knew there was a plan is because he was the head of the North Zone.
But did you ever see Un speak with Koitun? Speak about details of the plan to overthrow the DK regime? Did you ever see them speak together?
Answer: I never saw the two individuals had a discussion together. But I knew the two individuals, and as for how they communicated or discussed the matter, I have no idea.
In that same statement to DC Chem, you said the following about yourself. It's the same page, Mr. President. Question: were you found right away to have had an association with Un when he was arrested? And then you answer: while they found out I had such an association, I changed my biography. question. What do you mean by saying you changed your biography? And then you answer, I was originally from Sangkat Krava, Baksna village in Baray district. However, I told them that I was from Siem Reap because I knew Siem Reap well. This was how I could survive. Is that you recollect your statement to DC Cam about you changing your biography?
Answer. Yes, I stated what you have just read in the document of the DC camp. Before, I wrote in a document as you stated in Baksna, Kampong Thom province. But later on, when I was in the Democratic Cambodia, I changed my biography. I changed that I lived in Phu district, Siem Reap province.
Can you explain to me how that was helping you? Un was arrested and then you changed the biography. Can you explain how that helped you from being arrested as well?
Answer. I changed the biography because I want to avoid the surveillance conducted on me.
I might follow up on that later, Mr. Witness. We had a witness here last week, also from your Division 310, who also spoke about weapons being diverted. But he also told the trial chamber about a meeting chaired by Un, in which he called for rebellion. And this meeting was held close to Wat Phnom. Do you remember anything about a meeting close to Wat Phnom? I believe it was north of Wat Phnom, in which the armed rebellion was discussed by Un.
Answer. I was in the meeting and I knew about it, but I do not recall the date of the meeting. And as I stated, I was there in the meeting.
Where exactly was it north from Wat Phnom, this meeting? Do you remember which street it was, which building it was?
Answer. It was to the south of the Prakat Amelia Hospital, and nowadays I do not know where it is exactly, but at that time it was to the south of Prakat Amelia Hospital.
And how many Division 310 soldiers were present at this meeting in which rebellion was discussed?
Answer. I have no idea how many people were there in the meeting because I was a low-ranking person and I do not know how many people in the meeting.
I can understand, but would you be able to give an estimate? Were there a few hundred, 500, 1,000? Do you remember how many soldiers were listening to UN?
Answer. All members from regiment and battalion were called into the meeting, so I could give my estimate that there were around 500 people there in the meeting.
And was Commander Hun Sen, the present Prime Minister, also present at this meeting?
Answer. He was not in the meeting. Only the chiefs of the division chaired the meeting.
Was Koi Toon present?
Answer. Koi Toon was not in the meeting either. There was only one chief of the division, that is UN, who was there in the meeting.
Did you speak about connecting with East Zone forces in order to prepare for the armed attack on Pochentong Airport?
Witness, could you repeat your question?
Did UN speak about members of Division 310 connecting with members of East Zone divisions in order to prepare and plan the attack on Pochentong Airport?
Answer. I do not know about this. What I knew is that the commanders of North Zone and East Zone had the meetings, but in other places which I did not know.
My very last question before the break, if you allow me, Mr. President. You said you transported weapons to Kampong Cham. Was that the Kampong Cham which is part of the East Zone?
Answer. There was one intention from Yuan. He told me to transport weapons to the head of the sector, and the weapons had to be transported to the East Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Thank you, Mr. President.
President. Thank you. The hearing today has come to an end, and the Chamber will resume its hearing tomorrow on the 23rd of June 2015, starting at 9 a.m. And the Chamber will continue to hear the testimony of witness Sam Huon, and after which the Chamber will hear T2 TCW 911. Please be informed. Thank you very much, Mr. Sam Huon. The hearing of your testimony has not concluded yet. You are therefore invited to be here again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Court officers, please work with a vessel to send the witness, Mr. Sam Huon, back to the place where he is staying right now, and please invite him to be in the courtroom again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Security personnel are instructed to bring Mr. Kieu Sampon and Nuon Chea back to the detention facility and have them returned tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.